I think handing a kid an unfettered access to the internet is like handing them a loaded gun. Like it is the damage that you can do online, the things you can see, the things you can find, in my opinion, is the cause for most things that are wrong in the world today. I mean, it's and we could go into depth on that if you want to. I don't know if we want to here on this episode, but like it's just tons of issues. I mean, you just look around restaurants and see, like, you can tell the kids who've had phones for way too long and they're just in a little booth bunker and they're just hiding. Like, it's just not good for a healthy conversation, for a healthy society. Welcome to another episode of Welcome to another episode of Is This Ruvi?
What?
It is 2024. It's common knowledge that you shouldn't be on your phone when people are talking. Welcome to the episode of Is This for Kids? I'm Jonathan Blevins.
I'm Katie, MrsRuvi.
And today we're going to talk about cell phones, smartphones,
Los telephonos. Not a real word. I like to call it that, though.
A little different of an episode for you today. Normally we're reviewing different forms of media, video games, music, TV shows, movies. Yeah. But today we're talking about smartphones.
At your request, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of people asking. It's been I tweeted something out. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But you and I have had this conversation a lot. Every single parental group that I'm a part of, which is like zero officially, but tons of friends. This conversation comes up at one point in the first like 5 times you hang out with another couple. If your kids aren't all already in high school with phones, when do you let your kid get a phone? I mean, it's some of the answers I'll share are incredible. This is, I think, one of the most talked about, controversial topics when it comes to parenting, and a really important conversation for us to have.
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually putting out a free ebook that you can grab and keep your eyeballs out for that, about creating a social media and cell phone plan for your kid. Because to me, one of the biggest issues here is less about the timing, which tends to be what the conversation is about, is like what age do you give a kid a cell phone? And that's less of an issue more than, did you have a plan, or were you backed into a corner by your iPhone hungry 14-year-old or whatever, and felt like you had to cave because you were about to, drop them off at a football game and they didn't have a way to call you. That you don't want to find yourself in that position. So making a plan for when the kid's going to get the phone, what your rules are going to be, is a huge, huge part of this whole discussion.
Yes, it is.
You have this situation where these kids are all getting cell phones and things like that. But I was reading this book that was talking about like the right time to give a kid a cell phone. Yeah. And they're saying flip phones only until you're 14 and no social media until 16. But like, have you tried to give a kid a flip phone these days? I
mean, the only thing good on it is Snake. That's it.
Well, I don't even think they have that anymore.
Yikes.
Yeah. I've actually come across this thing. It's a Bark phone. Do you know the Bark app?
Yeah.
Yeah. They made a phone and it looks like just a regular Android phone. So your kid's not going to be like, oh, Mom, I have a flip phone.
Sure. Looks for everything.
Yeah. But it's so great for, like, you can slim down what their possibilities are. So, if you only want them to be able to call you and your wife, or if you only want them to be able to call their siblings, you can do that. You can put those restrictions on there. And then later when they're ready, you can give them access to the internet.
That's genius.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Not only that, but it'll let you know that if your kid is sending inappropriate messages or talking about threats of suicide or self-harm. So good and really very helpful, especially when I'm out with these kids in the teenage years.
Yeah, this is a must-have for parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where would you like to start?
Oh, I would like, because I already heard you have some pretty lofty goals for your kids. So none of your kids currently have cell phones, right?
No, I have a 9-year-old who just turned 9, a 7-year-old turning 8 this summer, and a 4-year-old.
So when are you thinking would be a good time for cell phones?
First, let's clarify the different kinds of phones that there are, because there's lots of different options. And we'll use my 9-year-old as an example right now. He's 9. I could see him getting a phone that is allowed to call or text just a couple of people that we allow it to happen, so that when he's at a friend's house or anything bad happens or whatever, he can call or text home, or maybe grandparents or something like that. And then you've got a smartphone, right, that has access to social media and the internet, which I think is a very different kind of phone. For me, like 16 is probably the youngest I would go for a smartphone that has unfettered access to the internet. And my reason for that is I would go so far as to say that, like, in a perfect world, we would just get rid of smartphones in general for everyone.
Sure.
I just think, right now we're the most connected the world has ever been, right? Via social media and the cell phones in general, being able to text, call anyone whenever you want, FaceTime. and we're the most disconnected, the most depressed we've ever been as well, right?
Yeah.
The average amount of time that an American spends, and I'm sure this is true elsewhere too, but on their phone is like right now higher than the amount of time that they're sleeping. So I think there's a massive media, digital screen issue in the world and here in America. And so the longer that we can delay that, the better I think it is for our kids' future.
Yeah. I'm not actually terribly far off from you since you made some qualifiers. I will have you know that John originally said 16 and our producer and I were making fun of him. But then when I was like, I'm going to drop him off at a football game, you're like, oh, crap.
No, I'm still 16 is my answer still.
Okay. All right.
Well, hold on.
For the flip phone.
Yeah,
Okay.
They'll have a different kind. Oh, of course.
Different type.
Totally.
Okay. Then maybe we're just having a completely different discussion.
Okay.
So for me, I would say that a kid should be able to get a cell phone in general, a basic phone like what you're talking about, that does not have internet access at the start of middle school. So that would put them at about 11 years old, 11, 12, depending on how old your kid is when they go into 6th grade. But 6th grade is when you start to see that your kids are kind of going to break away from you a little bit. They're going to go on more activities. Also, the stakes in parenting, I cannot just so massive jump in the stakes.
Yep.
It went from like, should I give my kids goldfish crackers knowing they're not organic to oh my gosh, my kid just saw a picture of somebody's junk. Like it's massively different. The levels of parenting. So you really got to put on your A game when they get into middle school. When they're in middle school, I think that it's important that they have the ability to contact you or other trusted adults.
Yep.
So I think that a lot of parents, you're going to share some of the people who put stuff on your Twitter. There's two schools of thought about this whole thing. One is that like by not giving your kid a cell phone, you've cut them off. They're not able to communicate. Unless you have a landline at home, they can't call 911. This is a huge safety issue. Can't believe you'd let your kid go to the mall without a cell phone. You are a negligent parent. And then the other half of that is, okay, but you're giving your kid access to the entire internet when you buy them an iPhone. So like, what are you doing here? And I think that there's really a tiered situation that needs to happen there, like what you're talking about. So when you get into middle school, you can have a phone with limitations. We have things like, there are apps like Bark or Bark Makes a Phone, or iPhones are incredibly intuitive for the ability to lock them down so that they can effectively just call only certain people. And actually for that capability that you're talking about to only call specific people, you won't be able to use a flip phone. They just don't have the functionality to do that. So they will have access to call literally anyone if they have that phone. So you're kind of going to find yourself in a position where you do have to buy a smartphone that has the ability to limit its functionality.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something to think of, but that's kind of economical because then eventually your kid can grow into it. And then as far as like the smartphone features are concerned, I would say that when your kid enters high school, so 14, 15 years old, they should start to be able to use their smart phone features, their internet access and things like that a little bit. But you need to really work, we need to really work with our kids on setting goals, like milestones. Like once you've shown me that you're mature enough to do this task on your own, I will understand that you understand the importance of, I don't know, let's say they start doing all their own laundry. Great. So now you're showing me that you can prepare in advance. You can show me that you know that you have to wear this uniform on this day. You've gotten that done. That's fantastic. I think that because you can show me that you're able to prepare in advance, we can give you a little bit of more access to your phone, give you some more time, maybe up you from 1 hour to 2 hours of being able to use apps or internet access, things like that. But once those trusts are violated, you really have to back that down. So you have to have that open communication that like your kid is going to screw up eventually. Like they're going to download an app you told them that they're not allowed to, or they're going to look at something that they shouldn't have. And that needs to be okay, well, you messed up. So we're going to, as a consequence, we're going to move this back down. You're going to have less privileges than you used to have, but we're going to get there. Like, I trust you. I know that you're going to learn from this. You're going to grow, and we can put those back later once you've displayed that to me.
What you have just talked about is, I love it. It's so involved. You have to be so involved as a parent here. Like, you could go the crazy extreme that I lean a little bit more towards. Like, and I will be honest, like, I think handing a kid an unfettered access to the internet is like handing them a loaded gun. Like, it is the damage that you can do online, the things you can see, the things you can find. in my opinion, is the cause for most things that are wrong in the world today. I
Yep.
mean, and we could go into depth on that if you want to. I don't know if we want to here on this episode, but like it's just tons of issues. I mean, you just look around restaurants and see, like, you can tell the kids who've had phones for way too long and they're just in a little booth bunker and they're just hiding. Like, it's just not good for a healthy conversation, for a healthy society. I think you agree with me, but you're like, let's live in the real world here. Right. But living in the real world, it just requires so much effort from a parenting perspective. And I cannot highlight enough or emphasize enough how important that is. Like, you're absolutely right, but it's worth it. It's worth doing as a parent. It's worth finding the time. I mean, I worked in parish ministry for 15 years with middle schoolers and high schoolers. And I am telling you, 98% of the issues that young people are having are stemming from unfettered access to the internet.
Yeah.
And their parents who just have no clue how to help. They just, oh, Timmy has a phone? Well, I guess it's time for you to have a phone. Here you go. With just no thought at all. And you're saying, parents, you have to put so much thought into it. And you're talking about trust, you're talking about communication. You're not talking about like watching every tiny little thing they're doing, although maybe a little bit earlier on. But that just takes a lot of communication, a lot of trust, and a lot of time that I agree with you is worth putting in.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be the number one issue that a lot of people listening who might agree with what we're saying are going to be like, how do I even find the time to do that, Ruvi?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'm with you. I keep saying this in various places on the internet. It really is harder to be a parent now than it ever has been at any point in history. Well, that's probably not factual. There's, World War II was probably a drag.
But like, you're not, on average, you're not wrong.
From a parenting perspective, how much, not, how crappy is the world, but
Right.
how much expectation is there for you to actually parent? We are now at like the parent was never a verb before our generation. You didn't parent people. You just were a parent. That wasn't a thing. So, yeah. So one of the things that I get it. It's tiring. It's a lot. There are people who can help you. There are resources out there. There are things that make it easy. The Bark app is good. If you go to the Genius Bar at Apple, they can help you to set things up. Funny story. When I first set up my son's cell phone, I had put all of his limitations on there for him so that because I got really good at it with my older daughter. She didn't really need it as much, but he did. And I do this really rude thing where I give him 1 minute of screen time so he can see 1 minute of the internet every day, and that's it. So, if his friends send him one Instagram reel, he can click on it and see it, but he doesn't have Instagram, so he has to go look at it through the app or through the Safari page. But he had tried to get around his limitations, just like trying to guess his screen time password so many times, and he couldn't do it. So then he tried to reset his phone, and in doing so, couldn't remember his Apple password, and he ended up bricking his phone completely, and I had to take it into the Apple store with a receipt to prove that I purchased it, to be able to get the entire thing reset. So I'm not telling you that this is easy, because there was nothing more annoying in my life than having to first go to the Apple store and figure out how to open this thing and find out that it requires me to physically go back to the Sprint store that I bought it from and then go back to it was a lot to deal with. It was a ton. It's not easy, particularly if your kid's, my son, trying to hack his way around it, but it's worth it. And then you drag your kid along with you for all of those processes where they have to go get the stupid receipt with you. This is the difference between JV parenting and varsity level parenting. So once you get into the middle school years where you are hands-on getting these kids prepared to be decent human beings, you decide whether or not you're going to be, I think you learned all of the morality and the ability to self-police. I think you learned it all by fifth grade. Here's your phone. Have a great day. See you later.
Right.
And you find out how little their frontal lobe has actually developed. Or you go varsity and you get in there and you spend a lot of time and you talk until you're blue in the face and your kids are constantly having conversations with you, and it can feel like you're always parenting, and it's exhausting. And I can tell you where to get good deals on wine, but you gotta make that choice. Maybe your kid is great. Maybe at fifth grade they tapped out and they're good, and you can throw them a phone and not have to worry about them. But I don't think most people are gonna want to be friends with the type of person that their kid becomes if they have unfettered access to the internet at 9, 11 years old.
Yeah. I know this is I know for me this is all anecdotal. When I worked in ministry for 15 years, my friends now that I can think of, any of the friends that I currently have that their kids who are under the age of 16 who have unlimited access to the internet. There's not one of them that those kids are using it well. Not one. Mm-hmm. Like it's just not one. And maybe the worst thing is that they're on it 12 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Maybe that is the worst thing.
Yeah.
That's horrible. That's still really bad.
Yeah.
Like if I look at my phone, and I do have to be on my phone for a living. So for the first time ever since I started doing full-time content creation, I actually I'm not on my phone as much in my free time. Yeah. If I am, I'm like checking the news and stuff. But I used to scroll TikTok and like Twitter a lot. And now I'm just kind of like, it feels like work. So I put it away. I feel so much better. On the days where I'm on it because I have to be, something huge is happening, where I have to be making videos, posting, tweeting, I'm way less happy, way less joyful. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if it's an issue for adults, it's a bigger issue for kids.
Yeah. There's a really great book that I just finished a little while ago. I mentioned it a couple of episodes ago, called The Anxiety Generation by Jonathan Haidt. Haidt is his last name. And it talks a lot about how kids who grew up with a cell phone based childhood, they lack the in-person, face-to-face, synchronous play that we had and that a lot of older people had as a child. They don't learn to do double dutch, so they don't like mimic other people's behaviors. They don't even that little game that like you did when you were a kid, where like you say something. Oh,
okay.
Lions. Go Lions. You know, that game that we all did as kids. Yeah. They don't do that very often anymore. Like these things where they learn to mock people, learn to read people's body expressions and things like that, because so much of their interaction happens over text messaging. So much of it happens over FaceTime, where you can't really even see what's going on. There's so much to that, and I highly, highly recommend that book before you even find yourself in the position. Like if your kid's 5, go read that book right now. Because if you're saying to yourself, like, this is way too young for my kid, it's going to be here before you know it. And it's a great book to check out as far as that kind of thing is concerned. But anyway.
Well, I'd like to end our conversation on phones here by checking some of the replies to the tweet that I sent earlier. So I sent out a tweet. Fired it off before recording today. Question for parents for our Is This for Kids podcast. What age should/would you get your child a smartphone? It's been seen by 6,000 people in just a few hours here. More replies than likes, which is how you know that it got good traction. So 61 quick responses, and they range from: my parents gave me a flip phone at 10, smartphone at 13. My daughter got hers at 9. She's only allowed to have it at home, and we have full access to everything. However, she's very mature for her age. I wouldn't likely do that if she wasn't. We did 11, not at school, but need it when out with friends. All the way down to 7 years old. And all the way up to, some people have joked, 65, 18, 21, because our brain's not even fully developed yet. Mm-hmm. But I would say the majority of the answers are saying no smartphones until at least 16. Mm-hmm. Because people, and these are not, I know these people, these are not like ultra religious people necessarily. These are just people who grew up on the internet, who know how dangerous that it can be, and who want to make their kids' lives a little bit better than theirs.
Yeah. And you can't just expect that just because your kid got older, your kid is going to be capable of dealing with things if you're not giving them the opportunity to try it and be willing to like ebb and flow. Let's try this, see if it works. If not, we're going to take it off and we're going to talk about how you had a mistake. What did that mistake look like?
Right.
And so you're going to lose access to your phone for a little while. You're going to lose access to your apps for a little while. But and then this is sort of a secondary issue, but with phones comes social media, and I would say we should not be doing that until they're 16.
Yeah. Just a message for any parent out there who feels like you're failing, or you gave your kid a phone way too early. You're listening to this and you're like, at first you're kind of like, oh, you guys are crazy, and now you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Mm-hmm. It's never too late. You're not alone. No judgment here from us. But there are, like you said, there's so many resources out there, like Bark, even just a flip phone, something that you can trade for your 6, 7, 8-year-old who already might have a smartphone, in order to just take extra precaution. It's never too late to make good choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not judging you. I gave my oldest child a smartphone when she turned 11, and it was bad. It was wrong. We had to take it away and cancel the plan. It was a whole thing. So just learn from other people's mistakes. It's fine. Like we screwed up too. It's totally fine.
Yeah. But take me back to that brick phone that had snake on it. And like the text couldn't be that long, or you had to use data. And so it was just like, hey, you want to go play football?
Yeah. And we've got a little referral code down in the show notes for you for Bark. If that's something that you're interested in, it can be installed on any kind of phone as an app, or they have a phone of their own. Check that out down below. But hey, If they wanted to find more content like this, where would they find it?
They go to isthisforkids.com. We are very active all over the place, YouTube and Instagram specifically.
Beautiful. And hey, right down here, there should be a subscribe button. Make sure you hit that because, that's how we know that you're here.
Yes. And let us know.
You wouldn't just show up at our house and sit there without telling us.
Yeah, never.
Freaky.
Any suggestions that you have? This is a little bit deviated from the content we normally do. We're potentially going to be doing more of it. So let us know any type of topic you would like us to talk about within parenting or parenting in a digital age in particular.
Absolutely. Hey, there's just so much content out there for us to look at as parents.
I'm Jonathan Beard of Blevins.
I'm Katie, MrsRuvi. Let us help you decide.
Is this for kids?